Welcome to Common Sense Mamita. I'm Lydia Nicole, and if it's your first time here and you are interested in acting tips, showbiz insight, or life's lessons, you've come to the right place. So subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can get all the information. Today, I have next to me Ernie G, one of the greatest motivational comics on the road. And we are happy to have him here with us today.
Woohoo! Yeah!
Where did you grow up at?
So I grew up in Highland Park, started hanging around with a bunch of cholos. My mom didn't want me to be a cholo, so we moved to Alhambra. And it's funny because everyone comes to LA to make it, but I'm one of the few people who's from LA and said, you know what, I think I can make it.
So what made you want to get into show business?
Ooh, my uncle was a child actor. When my family came over from Mexico, my grandma was one of those entrepreneurs, and she would make the family sell piñatas on the street. And to make a piñata, you get your hands all dirty and full of color ink and stuff. And my uncle was like, I don't want to do that. And so she's like, you got to help us somehow. So he would sing and dance on the streets, and he made more money making propinas and tips than my grandma made selling piñatas. So he got discovered and got put on a bunch of TV shows. And he was a child actor, and he was on shows like Bonanza and Gunsmoke. And as a kid growing up, I just remember my uncle being famous, but he wasn't world famous.
But he was working.
Yeah, well enough, and he always had the little Mexican roles. And I remember about 10 years ago, I'm flipping through the channels like at 2 o'clock in the morning, and an old episode of Lassie comes out on Animal Planet. And I see like this little Mexican come out with a sombrero and a sarape, and he's like, Señor Sheriff, we cannot find the Lassie, she is missing. I'm like, dude, that's my uncle. But he had this like uncanny ability of making the family laugh. Like whenever the family was fighting and arguing, typical Latino family, like grandma would get all mad at all the drunk uncles, and she's like, yeah, lárganse de mi casa, get out of my house. And my uncle would go, Ernie, you guys, I got one. And he'd tell a joke, and everyone would be cracking up. And as a kid, 7, 8, 9 years old, I was like, dude, we were all fighting right now, and now we're laughing? Comedy is power, like making people laugh. It disperses all the drama, and I was like, I want to learn how to do that.
When did you actually go to start doing that?
Well, my mom hated the fact that her brother was the star of the show. So she's like, you're not doing comedy. You're going to school, and you're going to get an education. So I listened to mom. I went to college, and when I got kicked out, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life. And I saw this motivational speaker named Les Brown. He inspired me. And when my aunt died, my uncle's wife, the one that was famous, I spoke at her funeral. And that's when I discovered my gift for gab. And I was like, I'm going to get back into college and graduate. So got myself back into college, graduated in honor of my tia, in honor of my mom. And then I took a life-altering transformational seminar called the Forum, the Landmark Forum. The Landmark Forum leader said, if you know in your heart you're a performer and you're not performing, you're robbing the world of who you are. So I was going to go to grad school and get my master's degree, and then I took this in social. I was going to get a master's in social work. I have a degree in psychology, minor in Chicano studies from Loyola Marymount, LMU. What's up? But then when I took that seminar, I realized that was all to make my mom happy and to fulfill her dream of me being an educated American Latino. And what do I want to do? I want to make the world laugh. And so I quit grad school, started doing comedy, and here we are 20-something years later.
Okay, so the first time you decided you were going to go get yourself on stage.
Oh, no. Okay, so my buddy told me about Rudy Moreno's East Side Comedy Jam at the Black Angus in Alhambra. We used to call it the Black Fungus. And I had my buddy pretend to be my agent and call Rudy, hey, have you heard of Ernie G? This guy's blowing up in Northern California, where I was supposed to go to grad school and never did. And then he's like, Ernie G, never heard of the guy. Yeah, have him bring a bunch of friends to my show, and I'll give him 10 minutes. And so I showed up in Alhambra with like 40 people.
Oh my goodness.
That paid $3 to get in. And Rudy Moreno was so happy. He was like, keep bringing more people. But I was horrible. My first performance ever was Rudy Moreno's Eastside Comedy Jam on a Tuesday night. And so that's when I got into it. And that first night, it was all my friends. So they were like, oh, you were funny. But years later, they're like, dude, you suck. Dude, you were horrible. I'm like, thanks for being there for me, guys.
So for those of you who don't know Rudy Moreno, I've also interviewed him, and check his link below, because Rudy is a fabulous comic.
Yeah, Rudy's been teaching a lot of young comics how to get into this
doing it for a long time. So you started in Rudy's room, and then when did you get to the Comedy Store?
In 1997, maybe even 96, I believe, John Mercedes, who used to be a writer on Happy Days, and he's been in the game for many years. He discovered all of these talents. He discovered Charlene Tilton and was on the cover of Hollywood Reporter magazine, the 52nd annual anniversary edition, which he made sure everybody saw when he walked into his office. He came up with a list of the top 100 Latino comedians, and I was like, there's 100 Latino comedians? I know 4. I knew Paul Rodriguez, George Lopez, Carlos Mencia, and then there was a bunch of no-names out there. I found out about this list, and I was like, dude, how do I get on this? I want to be one of the top 100. So I called John Mercedes. I said, I want to be on your list. How do I do this? He had just started a show called Latino Comedy Olympics. It was at the Improv. Bud Freeman let him do this show once a week. He said, Ernie, bring 100 of your favorite family and friends to my show on Sunday, and I'll give you 10 minutes. And I was like, 100 people? I think I can do that. I called everybody I knew, and I swear to God, I showed up with 72 people, paid customers on a Sunday night. I went on stage, and I did pretty good that year, that night. And then Mercedes was like, I meant bring like 10 or 12 people. And he goes, you keep bringing people, I'll keep putting you on stage. So for the next 13 weeks in a row, I opened that show every night, every Sunday, and I brought at least 10 to 12 to 15 people every week. And John Mercedes was the man that kind of started teaching me about the business. And so he had an influence on a lot of us at that time. And I went from like a nobody, no one knew who I was, to all of a sudden I was John Mercedes' like right-hand man, opening every Sunday night at the Improv. And then, I don't know if you remember this or not, but the Bud Freeman started seeing how much money Mercedes was making, because we were selling out on Sunday nights at the Improv.
And he took it back.
So Bud Freeman said, we're not paying you. You can keep bringing people, but you're not getting paid. So Mercedes said, screw that. Mercedes said, well, I'm not having my people come to your club if you're not going to pay me. So we had comedians and assistants saying, the show got moved to the Comedy Store. Go to the Comedy Store. So we, like 100 of us, went to the Comedy Store, and we did the show in the original room at the Comedy Store that Sunday night. That's how we ended up doing it at the Comedy Store after that. In the main room with Culture Clash and all of these iconic Latino comics that to me were like these amazing people. And all of a sudden I was on these shows with these guys. It was really cool.
What is the importance of having a mentor? Because that's what he was to you. What do you feel like the importance of having a mentor is?
Oh, it's absolutely essential. In the empowerment comedy that I do, I speak to hundreds of thousands of students all over the country. And that's one of the first things we say is that you got to get somebody that's doing what you want to be doing, and you have to have them mentor you, because the first thing is just to get yourself out of your own head. This little internal dialogue that we have going that kicks our own butt is our worst enemy. And so we got to be able to listen to somebody who's already been there and who's done it and who knows how to have us avoid some of the problems that they went through. But more than anything, just to get us out of our head and to be like, what do you think about this? Or, can you help me with this? I'm struggling with that. And every mentor I've ever had, they know what I'm going through, and they know that internal struggle, and they're able to say, look, think about it this way. And without that, you're just going to keep beating yourself up. Everybody out there has that internal radar that just keeps, like shutting us down. Oh, well, you shouldn't be doing it. You don't know what you're doing. But when you have a mentor that can pull you out of that space, it's really exciting that, I've been very blessed, I'm sure you have, to know these amazing people that say, I've been through what you're going through, and you can still make it. Yeah.
What made you decide? Because you could have taken any route in stand-up, but you chose a very specific, almost virginal route to do. What made you start doing motivational comedy?
Yeah, inspirational. I call it empowerment comedy. The first thing is, when I got kicked out of college, I was depressed. I was miserable. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I came home one day and I turned on the TV, and Les Brown, this motivational speaker, was speaking. And he was like, this guy's speaking into my soul. You were meant for greatness. I'm like, no, I got kicked out of college. He's like, no, you were meant to be something in life. And he pulled me out of that sadness that I was dealing with. And I was like, I want to do that for people. So when I started doing comedy, I tried to do motivational speaking with my comedy. But as you know, it takes 5 years just to get your voice out there. The first 5 years, you think you're funny, but you're not funny. You're learning who you are. You're learning your perspective. And I remember thinking, it's not going to take me 5 years to learn how to be funny. I'm already funny. And then I look back at videos. I'm like, I was horrible. I tried to do the motivational stuff. Like I'd do a set and I'd get a couple laughs. And then I'd say, and don't forget, you can live your dreams. Willie Barcena comes up to me and he goes, hey, bro, don't be doing that live your dream stuff, dude. Nobody comes to comedy to think about their lives. They come to comedy to forget about their lives. You're making them think about their lives, bro. Tell a flipping joke, bro. And I was like, you're right, Willie. I suck. And it was the greatest advice I got because all I tried to do after that was be funny. I didn't care about motivating anybody. I was still trying to make it. I'll always say Willie Barcena taught me how to be a comic, and I may not even have arrived at that yet, but he taught me there's being a hack and there's being a comic who loves the discipline of it, who understands what being a comic is. He's all, be a comic, dude. Write a joke and then work on that joke over and over and over again. And I became funny because Willie really taught me about the discipline of comedy.
When I started doing stand-up, well, I've been doing it a little while, but maybe a couple years. But I would go to the rooms that Rudy was
Hosting and booking, yeah.
And I would be, a lot of times, the only girl.
Yeah.
And it would be Willie Barcena, it would be Jeff Garcia, and Carlos Oscar. And it was the three of them. And what I learned from them was not just the camaraderie of having that acting support system, but that they would write each other's jokes and tweak it, and I was like, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
So mentorship is important, but also having that peer camaraderie where we're on the same course looking to go somewhere. And how do we sharpen each other?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And they were the first comics that I saw do that, because I've been doing stand-up for a while, but they were the first ones that I saw like huddle up with each other, and they would go to all the rooms together. It inspired me. How do you come up with your material?
I kind of differ in the way Willie approaches comedy writing. Like, Willie's really disciplined. And I started comedy with Gabriel Iglesias and Felipe Esparza had just been doing comedy for a little while. And we would go to Jeff Garcia's rooms and Rudy Moreno's rooms and Willie's rooms. And it was, you're right, there was this camaraderie of people. And Willie was like, bro, don't do it like that. Do it like this. And so we'd sit down and we'd write. And I remember Willie trying to teach me, you got to write it down, bro. And you got to, try it out. And then I heard some other comics later go, I don't write it down. I just go up on stage and I try stuff out. And if it got a laugh, then I would develop that stuff. And so that was more my style, was that I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, but I was really good at being confident in front of a crowd and then just seeing what kind of happened. And of course I had, 10 to 12 jokes that I would rely upon. But for me, it was like something would happen and then I would talk about it and it would get a big laugh. And then I go, okay, cool, I'm going to use that more. And that's kind of Gabriel Iglesias' style too, is now he just tells these beautiful long stories and he throws in his little voices and stuff and people love him. But it's different than that, like, sit down and write it down. And I know Felipe is that kind of guy too. He likes to write down his stuff. But I think whatever is organic for people. And for me, what was organic is just telling these stories and listening for the laughs and then just really exploiting that stuff.
You have a CD out. It's called Ernie G, Mama's Boy. What made you decide to do a CD?
Well, see, when you hang out with Willie Barcena and Rudy Moreno and all of these guys, they had just signed comedy CD contracts with David Drozen. For me,
David Drozen was the comedy guy in Los Angeles in the 90s.
He was the producer of Richard Pryor CDs, and he started Uproar Entertainment. And at the time, Uproar Entertainment, he was getting all the cutting-edge, new, hot comics. I had gone with Willie to sign his contract, and I'm actually on the cover of Willie's CD, because he put me, Gabriel Iglesias, Felipe Esparza on the cover of his CD. And I was like, dude, I want to do this. And so I would just kind of like list. One thing that I was really good at is looking at who was hot and who was doing stuff and hanging around them and then following their lead. It's funny, I went to a Dodger game one time and I saw George Lopez in line for a hot dog, and he was standing with James Blancarte, his attorney.
Yes.
And I remember going...
Who was also Paul
Rodriguez's attorney.
Yeah.
And James Blancarte ended up becoming one of the top entertainment attorneys ever in Latino entertainment. And I remember going, dude, I want to go to a Dodger game with James Blancarte being my attorney, right? So I told that story to John Mercedes, my old mentor and manager, and Mercedes just kind of orchestrated it, and all of a sudden, I went to a Dodger game with James Blancarte, and then introduced me to David Drozen, and then all of a sudden, boom, I signed a comedy CD deal with David Drozen. And it was really great because I wasn't that strong of a comic when I recorded this thing, but Mercedes helped me really hone in my craft, And the night that we shot this, we shot 2 shows at the Ice House, and I killed it. And it was probably one of my best shows that I've ever done. And we got it on the CD. So the CD is 20 years old. We did it in year 2000.
And it's still available. Go to Amazon, go to
ErnieG.com.
ErnieG.com and get yourself a copy.
Yeah.
So somebody who's out there listening right now and they're starting their career, what are some pointers that you could give them?
It doesn't matter how many comedy gigs you've done. It matters how many clicks you get, how many likes you get, and how many followers you have. And now there's all these internet sensations that have never earned their chops on the road as real comics, and yet they're selling out. There's this kid, Frankie Quinones, who I met him, and he's a really cool dude. He did the lean back cholo video. He's selling out the Will Turn, you know, and he never really earned his chops as a comic, but now he is a legit comic. And so my advice to young people is to, you know, and I've been saying this for many, many years, you got to believe in yourself and you got to put yourself out there in whatever genre feels organic to you. And for this guy, Frankie Quinones, making these videos turned him into a star. Joey Diaz, good old Joey Diaz, told me this one time. He goes, "You can't mess with the laws of physics, Ernie G. The cream always rises to the top. You can't mess with the laws of physics." And that stuck with me because regardless of the hype, regardless of how much you market yourself, you still got to be able to deliver. If people pay money to come see you and you're not as funny as you look online, that's a big problem. The reason I became a comedian is when Def Comedy Jam came out in 19 tatara, whatever it was, I would bolt home to watch it at Friday night at midnight. Russell Simmons, Def Comedy Jam. That's when I learned about Bernie Mac, Cedric the Entertainer, D.L. Hughley, all these stars. And Bernie Mac would always talk about, like, he could never get his own sitcom. He could never get his own TV show. And when he did The Kings of Comedy, he said that, "Come on, please, I'll do History Channel. I'll do the Animal Planet. Give me a show." And then I saw an interview with him, and he said he wasn't waiting for Hollywood to give him the green light. He was already a beast in the Chitlin Circle and all the black comedy clubs. And then when he finally made it, he always said, "Hollywood didn't make Bernie Mac. The people made Bernie Mac." And I just remember Mercedes would always tell me, when you perform, hang out after the show and get people's information. And I had a list, their address, their phone numbers, and all of a sudden I had like 1,000 Ernie G fans on my mailing list, and I would send out this mailing list and people would come to my shows. It got to the point that Univision wanted to buy my mailing list from me.
Wow.
Because they wanted to get people to come to their shows. And I actually got booked as the audience warm-up on 2 TV shows on Univision. One was called Los Recién Casados, the Newlyweds, and Buscando Pareja, the dating game.
I did that show.
Oh, really?
Buscando Pareja.
So the point is that I had a following of people before I was famous,
Right.
because I would hang out with people, I would talk to them, I would listen to them. And years later, people come up to me and they go, "Ernie, I know you don't remember this, bro, but you performed at the Laugh Factory on a Monday night, and you took time to hang out with me and my wife, and we took a picture of you, and that picture's been hanging on our wall for 12 years, bro, and we'll never forget that." And I've heard those stories all over the country. That's why students 10, 12, 15 years ago, they're now professionals, and now they're bringing their friends and family to my shows. I have like years and years of fans because I take the time to spend time with people, listen to them, hang out with them, take a picture, and that's how I've manifested my following.
You have a film coming up
Ooh.
called We Rise Up. Tell me a little bit about this. You actually went to Sundance with
Yes,
it.
this movie launched at Sundance. We were at South by Southwest. I just got back from Maui. We're at the Maui Film Festival. One of the things I teach in my empowerment comedy is when you surrender to what wants to happen, when you do that which you know you should be doing, the universe conspires to support your commitment, right? That's Paulo Coelho from The Alchemist. And I've been teaching that for years. You know, I go to Agape, I watch the documentary film The Secret, and I've really incorporated all of these globally recognized iconic transformational leaders. I take what they teach and I try to apply it in my comedy. And now I'm the educational program director for We Rise Up.
Beautiful.
Being able to take this movie to thousands of students. And this movie is about everybody rising up and being the best versions of themselves, which is what this show's all about, right?
We try to do.
Common Sense Mamita, baby.
Thank you. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button to get more information on Hollywood, acting, showbiz, and life lessons.